6, 2021. We all rise for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Beaver? Dr. Carter?
Sorry, Mr. Beaver notifies he will be unable to attend, and Dr. Porter has been working, so he will not be able to.
Mrs. Eisenberg? Here. Mrs. Henry? Here. Mrs. June? Here. Mr. Sheets?
Here,
Mr. Tomasi?
Mr. Tomasi will be attending, but he's going to be late due to work commitments.
Mrs. Walliser? Here. Mr. Wagner?
Here.
All right, moving on to recognitions and the New Heights Award. So we'll turn that over to you, Mr. Bogger.
Thank you. So we have two New Heights Awards this evening to recognize. First, we have Beth Ann Seidman. So Beth Ann, we'll have you come down. Beth Ann serves in the capacity of our assistant business manager. So Beth Ann, I will read to you the two New Heights Award recognitions. So if you want to come over here. It says, Beth Ann, she has done a great job taking the reins and leading the business office during this transition period in the absence of a business manager. She has taken a lot of responsibilities and done so with grace and grace. She is certainly an asset to the business office and the Brandywine Heights Area School District as a whole. And the second one is, Beth Ann has gone above and beyond to ensure the business office continues to run without a hitch in the absence of a business manager. She goes out of her way to help everyone and is willing to learn all aspects within the office to be able to grasp information and assist accordingly. Her positive attitude is delight in the office, given her workload, and we couldn't be more proud to have her as a colleague. Beth Ann is a rock star. Beth Ann, thank you for all that you have done. You have been such a wonderful team player. You've been with our district for so many years. For me, it's been a great opportunity to get to know and work with you. I've always had that opportunity, but to do this more in a leadership capacity has been really neat. And I tremendously cherish everything you've been able to do as keeping all the functionality going in the office, but also serving in that leadership capacity. You are that glue, and as we talked this morning, you have a wonderful staff and a wonderful employees that you have been able to grow and give them opportunities to continue to grow. But it's because of your leadership that we're able to be in this position, and I thank you so much for helping us to get through this transition. I know it is a tremendous work. I know it's a tremendous extra stress level on you. But you've done that with, as mentioned, grace. You haven't complained. You are just such a dedicated employee to the Brandywine Heights Area School District, wanting everything years of you, and I thank you for everything you've done. So, congratulations.
And thank you for your support and more support. We have been blessed to have a really strong staff for us, and with us. Without that, wouldn't be capable as well as we are. And I feel very confident that we'll make this in our period. Be okay.
Remember that one thing we talked about when the business manager transition was happening? We said, don't worry, we've got this. Just find the right person.
Yeah.
We didn't think it was going to take this long, did we?
I've learned to expect the unexpected, so.
Thank you. Congratulations. The second award this evening goes to Michael Furman. Unfortunately, Mr. Furman wasn't able to join us this evening, but Dr. Reese, I'll have you come up and just say a few words on Mr. Furman. And as we do that, I will read the recognition. It says, Mr. Furman is an exceptional school psychologist. He has never needed to pick up the work of two psychologists for the last year and a half, and has not missed a beat. He's never missed a timeline and continuously offers support and guidance to staff and students. When Mr. Furman meets with parents, he offers a very warm, caring, and supportive environment in which he builds a strong rapport and trust. He shares the reports in an easy-to-understand manner and always shares with the parents how great it is to work with their child and the positive characteristics they each portray. He is truly worthy of New Heights Award. We are so blessed to have him on the Pupil Services and the Brandywine Heights team. When you think of an excellent school psychologist, Mr. Furman is the true image. So, Dr. Reese, I know we have tremendously shared the value of Mr. Furman. He has completely reshaped what the school psychologist role is for our school district, and has helped train the new interns. So if you would just want to share a few official comments.
Absolutely. Mr. Furman went from working secondary to now moving K through 12 because we're down psychologists for the last year and a half. So we picked it up, and he not only didn't miss the timeline, he didn't miss the meeting, but he had that warming, caring, genuine outlook on everything. So when he meets with parents, the first thing he says, and some of you have been involved in the meetings, is, "Oh, I just loved working with your child. They were great to be with. They're so happy." And he always had positive things to say. So when we're putting into Brandon White Family, when we want that warm and respectful environment, Mr. Furman definitely brings that through all the district and through each of the buildings. We have an intern right now who he's in training, and they are just like a perfect match. They work so well together. So having them all in our people services team really helps our office, and it really helps keep that respect and trust with all the parents and the children that we have, and definitely with all the administrators as well.
And I give a lot of credit to Dr. Reese. She has reshaped that old school psychologist format. It used to be a lot of do the report, meet with the parent. Do the report, meet with the parent. And she has invested in people that understand, yeah, you have to do the report. It's more about the kids. And they are so student-centered. It just kind of goes along with what our whole school district is about. But she has really done a phenomenal job of putting excellent people in these roles. And Mr. Furman is just such.
And that's what we want in people services. So we're sorry that he's not here tonight. He really would have loved to come. However, we miss him. If you're watching, Mike, thank you so much for everything you do.
Dr. Reese, I'll have you give this to him if you don't mind. Thank you. So as we transition Mr. Wagner to come down here, would you mind if we bring the screen down? We'll have the board members come down here. I think we have two present. No, be a student report.
Give student reports first.
Sorry, my apologies. And then we'll transition back.
Sounds good. All right, so moving on to student board representative reports. Elizabeth is not here, correct? She's not here. Right, we will start with the elementary school.
The elementary school students were very excited to see the other half of their class in person for the first time this year. Teachers focused on adapting students to the new classroom routines and procedures. They also did team building activities and had a lot of fun while still learning. The second graders got a first look at the new gym and classrooms and loved them. They are already planning the games they want to play in gym class and during recess when it is fully open and operational. In the meantime, they will continue to eat lunch in a new space and dream about all the possibilities of fun in those areas. Just like many wedding celebrations this past year, the Q and U wedding in kindergarten will look a little different. This is a silly tradition that the elementary school is excited to continue. The letters will join together virtually this week, and the students will still get to celebrate the QU union. There will still be dancing at this reception, and photos will be taken to capture the fun and will be posted on the elementary school's social media accounts. In the high school, the transition to both cohorts being together in the building has gone well so far. This week, the Student Council is hosting a Spirit Week to welcome everyone back following spring break. Today was Tie-Dye Tuesday. Tomorrow is Role Reversal Day, where students will dress like teachers and vice versa. Next is Throwback Thursday, where students will dress how they would 1 year ago. And Friday is Brandywine Spirit Day, where students will wear school attire and colors. Students are also currently preparing for spring assessments, including Keystones and AP testing in May. In sports, boys tennis, boys volleyball, track, softball, and baseball are all competing in athletic events. Some school clubs will begin meeting in the next few weeks as well, either in person or virtually. In other news, graduation is planned for June 2nd at Kutztown or June 3rd, it being held at our high school. More information will be known as we arrive closer to the dates.
Thank you. John, would you will give your report for the intermediate middle school?
In the middle school and the intermediate school, Read Across America was March 2nd. The Music Boosters also held their Joe Corby's fundraisers for the music department. In the middle school, first LEGO League competition was held on the 27th of March. The LEGO robotics competition was held with Mr. Mark. The team had to submit a practice round and then 3 additional competition rounds for all robot missions. This was a unique task because of our timelines. So we ended up with 2 different team members on different days running with the missions. Our team was judged and received a score of 195 points, which is a new high score for the middle school. Congrats to the team for that. Spring sports started back up, and all the athletes are excited about their seasons. Students returned to school. First 3 days went well. Students were also happy to see all their friends. Upcoming Spirit Week coming, and themes have not been determined yet. In the intermediate school, Jordan Henninger, a 4th grader in Mrs. Hook's class, won the UGI Dial Before You Dig drawing contest. There were over 400 entries, and she won the grand prize, which was a new HP laptop. Ms. Hook also received an award for having her students participate. 5th grade students completed constellation projects in science class, too. Students also enjoyed seeing their friends after returning to full in-person teaching.
Thank you, guys. Nice job. We're going to transition the board down to the auditorium. We have 2 presentations.
So this evening we've been, as a building construction committee, talking about the building updates. We have the elementary school project going on, that's coming to an end. Great work that's happening down there. The bids are out right now to redo the middle school, to do some upgrades to this facility, the upgrades to the hallways. And then we have the final phase, which is some outside work at the high school. In working with the building construction committee, we have been talking about the potential of additional borrowing. So the school district took a $14 million initial loan out for the project, and we got a very good rates at that. I think we secured our loan at 1.42%. So we're now talking about the potential of an additional one because the rates are so low right now. Does it make sense for us to take some borrowing out? So we asked Mr. Kramer to come and share that with us. So Mr. Kramer, thank you for your time this evening.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here again this evening. We always like to start these presentations with a little bit of a refresh on the state of the union with respect to interest rates and existing debt. We were not here that long ago, so if you look at the far right-hand portion of the chart, just to refresh everybody's memory, the spike you see at the far right-hand part of the chart is last March, where we first ran into COVID, market disruption, interest rates spiked several hundred basis points. And you can see over the last 12 months what's happened. Interest rates went to historical lows. In the very far right-hand portion of the chart, we've kind of been creeping back up with respect to long-term interest rates, in particular over the last probably 4 or 5 months, where the bottom of the market was 0.7% on the 10-year treasury. Today, when we left the office, we were about 1.65%. So people are now finally starting to feel the economy opening, people getting back to work. All those things that we've been putting in place in terms of stimulus has been getting things moving again with respect to the economy. And so that's caused interest rates to move up slightly from their all-time lows. But again, what we're going to talk about this evening, rates are still at historical lows, so still a very good time to come back and finish up the project needs that you have. Again, a bit of a quick refresh. This is a summary of the existing debt service for the district. Columns 1 through 7, you can see there's 6 existing pieces of debt. Column 7 is the gross debt service before we factor in any reimbursement that you receive from the Department of Education. Down in column 14, that's really the most important column that we use. You can see your debt service is nice and level at $2,470,000 a year. It goes out to the year 2030 and drops off in 2031. And if you did nothing, you'd be out of debt in a very short amount of time. So every time we have this conversation, we talk about, how does this look relative to our peers? Even after you've been doing these issues the last couple of years, to have a debt profile that's within 10 or 11 years is very, very short. Gives you a great deal of flexibility to do the things that you want to do that we're going to talk about here in the next slide or two. So again, you've been good stewards of the financial profile of the district, kept a good rating, made good decisions over the last 25 years that are now allowing you to do these things and take advantage of interest rates for these projects. So we were asked to take a look at borrowing $2 million of additional money. And so because of that flexibility, we have some different ways we can structure the new debt. And so the gray box on the left-hand side of the page simply is that column 14 from the previous page that shows your debt service going out to 2031 at a run rate of about $2.4 million a year. So the blue column is a 10-year, what we call a tight wrapped structure. So you can see that in the first column of the blue box, the debt service associated with kind of a levelized kind of payment with a little bit of principal out there in 2031. That's the impact to your budget, $154,000 a year. And the after column goes from 2.474 up to 2,628,000. The next middle of the road kind of scenario is stretching it out a little bit so that the impact to budget goes from 154,000 in the blue column down to 93,000. So your run rate ends up at 2,564,000. And so what we would call the optimal structure, most advantageous to your budget and to tax base, is the green structure, which is a wrap structure where we put all of the principal out in 2031 and 2032, and the impact to budget is only $45,000. And so the run rate that you're paying now in terms of the gray column, $2,474,000, only goes up by $45,000 a year to about $2,516,000. And so, one of the things that we want to be mindful of is the structure you see in the gray box postpones principal a little bit, puts it at the end, but it is the best solution in terms of the impact to your budget. And so if you compare the blue to the green, it's a difference of about $125,000, $150,000 of additional interest. But we think, given where interest rates are, you can essentially we think the rate's going to be a little bit better than 2%. That's our assumption here. That locking up a rate for 11 or 12 years, only extending the debt by 1.5 years is, kind of the package that, that's the flexibility that we're speaking of. It gives you the ability to borrow $2 million and only have an impact budget of, call it $46,000. And at the end of the day, if you want to come back to the well 3, 4, 5 years down the road, if another project pops up, you're going to be, working your way down this page, and you're going to be sitting in the same exact position where you're going to have a very flexible debt profile that's going to allow you to do exactly the same thing very efficiently should something else come back up that you want to finance. So there's no right or wrong answer here. I think the green box is a great solution given where interest rates are. You can lock it up for a short amount of time and have a very low impact to budget. And I think given where we're at with a lot of uncertainty with budgets coming out of Harrisburg and how we're getting back on our feet, that's probably a good solution. So with that, I'll pause and answer any questions that you might all have. Before I do that, in terms of timing, if you pick a structure, you don't have to pick the structure this evening. We would envision going to the bank market, coming back for a parameters resolution if there's another meeting in April, we can do it before the May meeting, and then in the meantime have an RFP out to the banks so that we have money in the bank by June for the projects. So now I'll stop talking. I promise.
So to segue the conversation, the reason we wanted to bring Scott out this evening was to present the idea, see if this is something as a board you even want to consider, or if this is an idea that we just want to kind of put to the side and say, we don't want to go into additional debt. It's just not the right time. If it is the right time, and you think we should do it, then as Mr. Kramer just outlined, we can do this within the next couple of board meeting months. But I think one of the things you'll need to know, and again, as mentioned, not very necessarily tonight, but which of these structures we want to do, the blue, the yellow, and the green. Obviously, the green as outlined is the least impactful to our long-term budget, but it does cost us a little bit more in long-term interest. But probably the one conservatively looking at the budget, the most appetizing in terms of we can really absorb this because it's only a $46,000 increase in budget over time. And that, in light of kind of where we are, limbo of business manager figuring out budgets, probably is our safest bet to go that route. It doesn't make sense, legit, from a common sense perspective, to put all your principal and delay that to the end. But from the perspective of what the numbers show, it absolutely is the most conservative way to go to get that additional $2 million. Any questions for Mr. Kramer?
Can you just clarify again? So the green column, we would pay an additional $135,000 in interest if we chose that.
Versus the blue column.
Versus, and what about the yellow column?
Yeah, so if you look at the bottom, the numbers I'm looking at, the total payback in the blue is $27,878. The yellow column is $27,966, and the green column is $28,025. So the delta between the $27,878 and $28,025 those are the differences in total payback because you're delaying principal from blue to green.
So originally, Mr. Kramer gave us the blue option and the green option. He said, what would it look like if we paid more principal up front and not as much on the end? And when you really look at the yellow and the green, it's not that much of a difference. And for the additional money we would have to put out on an annual basis, it just, when you look at the bottom line, it really just doesn't make a lot of sense to go with that yellow. It just doesn't make sense. I think you use the word most optimal.
Yeah, and the beauty of what we're contemplating here is a bank loan that's prepayable anytime without penalty. So do I think rates are going to go lower? Probably not. But you do have the ability to come back if rates move lower to refinance, much like we did on the last couple of issues. Should you need to borrow money for another project, you can restructure this debt if you need the flexibility to do it. So you're getting a lot of flexibility. The delta of $125,000 or $50,000 of interest over a 10 or 12 year period on a present value basis is nearly zero. And so to have, not to back yourself into a corner with a higher payment that, to Mr. Potter's point, that you don't know what the budget looks like just yet this year or next, and you can prepay any time. So if you find yourself, with some additional cash in the budget year and you want to pay it down, that's great, you can do it. Wouldn't recommend paying down kind of like the college loan, 2% debt, but you could do it.
Scott, question for you. On the blue column and the yellow column, would it not be more appetizing, say, in year 5 and 6, for banks to restructure our debt as opposed to in the green column?
So, if I understand your question correctly, the bank, we're going to get a fixed rate for the entire term.
Correct, but when you mentioned about restructuring, as we did with this past loan,
Yep.
we would spend, say, 4 or 5 years paying strictly interest and no principal.
Yep.
Are there a lot of banks out there with that appetite to?
Yeah, so we've, to be honest, we've not had an issue with the banks in this structure where they have an appetite for what we call the wraparound structure, where all the principal is at the end. One of the things that we need to be mindful of, and your bond counsel is mindful of, is in Pennsylvania, you need to have a level or declining debt in total with all the pieces of your debt. And so the right-hand column of each of those options shows level debt. That's what we need to file with the Department of Community and Economic Development. So you really have two options: the structures you see here in front of you, or what we would a more traditional structure like a home mortgage, which is just a level payment, which comes with an even higher impact than what you see in the blue box. So to answer your question, we've not seen any pushback from the banks in terms of this structure. The bond market certainly doesn't mind the structure at all. So because of the size, some of the reasons why we've kind of been going down the path of a bank loan here is small amount of money, the term, which is still in the bank's wheelhouse. The banks generally don't like to go longer than 10, 15 at the most. Generally 5, 7 is their wheelhouse for fixed rates. But there are some regional banks, and actually KeyBank has been a pretty aggressive buyer here recently. So that said, lower cost of entry to do the transaction itself, prepayable anytime without penalty. We can structure this as a drawdown loan so that you can draw the money as you need it. Because now you're going to borrow at 2%, have the money sit there earning still zero, unfortunately. So that would be added flexibility with the bank market versus the bond market. A lot of reasons why we kind of boiled it down to here, but long-winded answer to the banks generally have not pushed back on that.
It's not also true that if in a handful of years you want to refinance again, Mr. Wagner, I think maybe this is what you were pointing to. It's highly unlikely that a handful of years from now, the rates will be even better than they are now. So in the future, if we need to borrow money, we probably would not, I'm guessing, you tell me if my theory is wrong here, but I'm thinking that we wouldn't refinance this debt because it's at 2%. Why would we wrap it around something that's at 3.5 or 4, whatever rates in the future it would be at?
Yeah, good point. You wouldn't do it from an interest rate perspective. The only reason you would do it is from a cash flow perspective. If you needed to justify your home mortgage, if you woke up one day and all of a sudden you had a 20-year mortgage and said, geez, I can't afford that payment, I need to stretch it out to 30. Even if you went to a higher interest rate, you would do it because you need cash flow relief. We're seeing districts do it for that reason, but you're right, you wouldn't, you're going to put this 2% to bed and forget about it for probably 10 years. And you can't, relative to your peers, you can't really go wrong with any of the scenarios you're looking at here, because to have a debt profile this short, even relative to the smaller districts in the county, is still, you've done a really good job of getting ready for these projects, planning for these projects, structuring the debt in a way that doesn't put you into a box that you can't do other stuff down the road. You've done a good job here.
Just as a reminder, we decided to do this KKLL and serve as our bond counsel. We typically had previously used other services, but the last one we did use KKLL, and we would continue doing that again. Let me start with this question. Is this something the board has an appetite to continue conversations and have Scott continue to look at, or do we just want to say no to this? We're kind of a yes or no, do we want to move forward or not?
I guess for me, the larger question to you would be, how much do you think that we could accomplish with the extra monies, with any shortfalls we might see with the other projects, or change orders?
I guess I'll answer this like a chicken and egg. So we can always use the money to help facilitate. That being said, knowing where the market is currently with the cost of projects, things are really escalated right now. And so we're doing construction in a very escalated point. And so I don't think our dollars we borrowed are going to get us quite as far as what we initially hoped 2-3 years ago, 4 years ago, when we went down this path of, okay, we need to redo some investment in our facilities. Here's our long-range plan to do that. Construction costs blew up, and so again, I don't think we're going to get as far as what we were. So yes, to answer your question, $2 million will be used to help us get to that end goal. I'm still hopeful that we'll be able to get all the projects done, but I think we're going to have to use capital to still close out some of the bigger things on the list. This will help close out.
Mr. Potter is right. The cost of building materials has just gone through the roof. The cost of steel that's gone through the roof. In my industry, we've had 2 price increases in the last 365 days just due to the increase in the cost of steel. The other thing to point out is, I mean, if we're looking at the green box, and green out glasses on spitball on what I think I see here. I mean, we're looking at just roughly under a 10 million, right, for those first couple of years, and then it's bumping to just over $1 million and then $2 million in the last 2 years. So, you know, from a tax increase standpoint, we'd be looking at that, or we'd be looking at, you know, okay, we got to cut that much out of the budget. I kind of think that we're at a bit of a catch-22. Like just because of the increasing costs, we're kind of at a situation where we kind of have to go and do this. You know, I think that the amount of money that we borrow, the amount of money that this represents percentage-wise kind of lines right up with the increased cost in construction and increased cost of materials. I think it really just boils down to what dawn do we feel more comfortable with, you know, blue, yellow, or green. I think green gives us a lot of leeway with not a lot of upfront costs, and it kind of allows us to not push our crop down the road, but it gives us, you know, what, 10 years to plan for that blue payment at the end.
That's what I was thinking right away when you said that. I'm like, I feel like we're just dumping it then to the end, and you know, in 10 years it's going to be someone else's problem. Like it's not fair for us to like.
So, just hold up, time out. So, I think there's a little bit of confusion. So, if you look at the far right-hand column, what you need to raise in your budget is $45,000.
Okay.
That gets you to a run rate in your budget for debt service of $2,520,000.
Okay.
And then once you put the mills in place to cover $2,520,000, it's never higher than that. So, at the end, the principal is higher at the end, but that's not an impact to your budget at the end.
Okay.
You have fully baked in $0.1 of a mil is all you need to cover $45,000. And then your debt service, what's in your budget every year for debt service is $2.5 million. It doesn't go up in 2031 or 32.
Okay.
That's just the way the principal is structured. Yeah, it's just takes the principal and puts it at the end so that what's in your budget for debt service is not going to go up after year 1. So it's $0.1 of a mil, and then you're done.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
It's just more extended out rather than.
Right.
Yeah, it allows the bank to make more money out of it. That's what that does.
Right,
Yeah.
And then the other situation that also is great when we pay the sooner. So if we have a windfall or we end up renegotiating contracts or something to that extent, you know, we can also take, you know, I mean, at any point in time, you know, we can also take money out of the capital improvement fund to repay this.
Right.
Because we're using this, and correct me if I'm wrong, we could take money from the capital improvement fund to pay this because we're taking this debt service for the restoration of the bill. That's correct.
Yeah, the capital improvement fund can be used for reuse. That has flexibility to come back into a.
Okay, just want to make sure that it isn't signed fund balance, so as long as it's.
I'll double check.
Yeah, as long as we're paying off something that's being used for that thing, we should be good to go. So it actually kind of sounds like the green's a little bit of a no-brainer, it's just a matter of you really have to take $2 million from the fund in money, which again, like I said, kind of being
Yeah, I think that even if, like hypothetically, there was nothing to be done right now, in 10 years, there will be something to be done. And why not take advantage of the rates, because in a year or 2 years, they could be 6%. And then, I mean, it will like, you know, that's just borrowing the construction price and costs. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this, you know, I guess if you look at the gray and say, okay, our loan, our debt is 2.4 billion a year. We're going to move it up to 2.5, 2.47. We're going to move it up to 2.5. It's really only $45,000 a year, essentially, that we're up to that payment of. And it'll stay consistent the whole way through until 2031, when everything falls off. So for me, it's a very nice way to get an additional $2 million at a pretty low impact for the 10 years. When you look at it that way, the 10-year budget. By 2032, you know, it's good. But at that point, you know, that our debt starts to come down to our 1.2 billion, and we can figure out what the next steps are next.
Well, I guess my question then is, this needs to be part of the budget discussion that we've had because this adds then to any shortfalls that we may have.
So if I'm not mistaken, if I look at this, this does not have an impact this coming year, the impact of the following year budget, is that correct?
There's 33,000 in the 21-22 budget.
21, 22,
And
okay.
we could,
So I read that as 20 September, it's June 30th, 2022. It's-
that's your, correct, 21-22 budget.
Okay.
So you could, if you wanted to move that 33 and make it a 0, you could, what's called capitalized interest, you could borrow an additional 35,000 of interest, have no impact in 2022. Again, it will be a small amount that would be dumped out there in 2032. I mean, you can do that. Or,
if you changed your chart to say fiscal year beginning rather than fiscal year end.
Yeah.
And make starting on July 1 instead of June 30.
correct.
That would make it look better.
So I guess that, to my point there's a pencil sharpening that has to happen.
Yeah.
Not just for this year, but moving forward, because our costs are going to continue to escalate. And that's
Just the annual business cost.
so that, that would be, I think for me, the money makes, that it's a no-brainer. We need $2 million to finish these projects, and it's cheap money. However, in light of the budget talks that we've had, where does that come from, and what do we have to increase to cover that, and then actually project into 22, 23 instead of over $100 this year or 19.
And that's always the concern with budgeting, is you don't want to get yourself behind, right? And so you're asked to do a little pencil sharpening and go back now and say, okay, well, we'll here where we are right now and commit this with the current budget. And so we'll have to add that back in now and come up with that additional 30,000 for the approval budget. I think we're going to be able to, if we're going to do this, that's definitely the option. Much rather try to come up with 33 than 152 or 90. That would be a more stretch for us at this point in time.
Mr. Potiker, do we have a projection or a forecast for end of this school year, what our favorable budget variance will be? Historically, it's been in the $600,000 or $700,000 range year after year after year. And then we keep that money typically, I think, and we sort of put it into one of our fund balances, almost like that's our savings account.
Yeah.
So, historically, this district has had a very strong track record of producing favorable budget variances year after year. Are we on track to do the same this current year?
I don't have any specific numbers to throw at you, but I can give you some kind of, here's where we're at. The revenue coming in from our delinquent tax collections, that's the monies that we go after because the taxes weren't paid. That's coming in, that's sluggish right now. The interest rates that we have on our money is sluggish right now. And there's a third revenue source that's coming in low right now. So year to date compared to the budget, now of course we have another quarter yet. And this really talks about that. We're only looking at numbers that are February. As soon as you get it, you reconcile it. We're looking at February. So again, about a quarter year left. We're about a little bit short on revenue year to date compared to what the budget is. That being said, there's a lot of expenses that didn't happen this year. So when you think of staffing, which is our biggest expense, paraprofessionals, bus drivers, well, those things didn't happen this year because we were in the virtual world for a quarter of the year, and so that's a pretty significant savings that we're going to have on the budget. So I don't have a number for you, but I believe they're going to watch, and we were going to come in somewhere around what we historically feel comfortable at that savings. That would be my ballpark there.
The other issue with that is we won't really know those numbers until September, October. The budget doesn't actually finish closing out until September, October. So I think that the reason why we don't typically work that into the budget when we're doing the budget process historically has been because it's very difficult that it's going to be there, but I don't think you ever want to budget the fact that it's there, because then if the budget doesn't work out the way you want it to, and you end up at the start of this next school year, and you find out that it was $100,000 in your favor instead of $800,000 in your favor, now you have a $700,000 vote shortfall, which will play, Harry, what with the rest of the school year at that time. Mr. Wagner.
We have
that meeting on the 19th.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Another conversation about.
why don't we push this, add it to the discussion I'm going to have about budget, and then push this to the next meeting to have a decision, give us some time to mull it over and give you some time to, meet with the business office and see if we can pencil sharp. Yeah, there's really no rush. I mean,
No, it's just to kind of go through the timeline again for us. So,
Yeah, so if you want to make a decision at your next April meeting, we can come back to the May meeting for parameters. Once you decide what's the right number, what's the blue, green, yellow, you come back to the May meeting. At that point in time, once you make a decision at the April meeting, we can send out a request for proposals and be prepared to come back to the May meeting. We close in June. That's waiting a couple weeks is not. That's fine. Absolutely.
What is the interest rate forecast though between, mid-April and June look like? I mean, what are they saying over the next 6 weeks? How many basis points are we gonna penalize ourselves by delaying?
So.
Should I put it on red or black?
Yeah, right. So I literally just came from Wilson and heading to Kutztown after this. So I don't have that crystal ball, but my personal opinion is we have seen a pretty significant move, probably one of the biggest moves ever from January until now, where all of a sudden the dam broke and interest rates went from 1 to 1.7, 1.77 as interest rate high. Now today it's 1.66. The question we ask ourselves in the office is, will the 10-year go to 2% first or back to 1.5%? I think we would say we're in this trading range, probably somewhere between 1.5 and 1 3/4 is kind of where we found a little bit of breathing room with respect to the marketplace feels that was kind of the appropriate move for rates. I can't sit here and tell you that rates might go to 2% either, but I think the bank rates don't move as quickly as the bond market. The bond market's every day, every minute, the rate is what it is. Banks are you're going to get a little bit of favor from folks who want to do business with Brandywine because they have a branch down the street. You're going to get folks who just need loans to make loans in the current environment. So you have those kind of forces where even though rates may have gone up 10 or 15 basis points, you're still going to get the same rate you see here. And again, we've been conservative. I think we just did a loan for the borough of Ephrata for 15 years, and the rate was 2.12 for 15 years. This is much shorter. So I feel we're going to be in the high ones. I feel pretty good about that, whether it's at the April meeting or the June meeting. I don't think rates are going to get away from us from here, unless something catastrophic happens. Black or red.
I can't wait, so I apologize. And this might have already been said.
No worries.
When does this new money have to be used?
You have 3 years. You have to reasonably expect, because the bond lawyers in the room, you have to reasonably expect to spend the money within 3 years.
Just because of the building costs the way they are, I mean, obviously we couldn't take the can down the road. That's my concern on and having any more money when we have really only did what we're doing in the next. How things are going to come back in the next cycle with the intermediate school and whatnot. We'll find out very soon.
Yeah,
So I think it's a good idea to hold off for a few weeks to let it all come to fruition.
Yeah, one of the conversations before you got here was, building costs have gone up, material costs have gone up, and that's kind of really adversely affecting the initial money that we took. Because it's not looking like it's going to, not looking like it's going to carry the students, right? That's why the extra money is coming out. One thing just to finish up, for my colleagues, this is not something that is tied to the budget, right? So it's part of the budget, it can be part of the budget conversation, but this is something that's to be actioned on separate from the budget. So we don't have to hold this until we have our budget approval, on 3/14. This is something that we can come back, we can get the information, and everybody can kind of, let Mr. Pottinger know the information that they think they're going to need, the information that they want to see, We could try to make sure that we have all of that for everybody by that April 19th meeting. We could take action on that meeting, because that is a special meeting, right? That's right. April 19th. Yeah, so that's a special meeting, so we have enough time to advertise and place this on the agenda as an additional item on that agenda. That way, we have an opportunity for us to get some education on this, be a little bit more informed about it. And if we decided not to do something that day, we decided to move it to May, we have that option as well. There's something that says that we have to vote on an agenda item. We can always table it to a later discussion. But, I mean, that's just putting that out there. If there's appetite for it, this would be something I'd say we take advantage of it, get the information everybody feels they can get, have that conversation on the 19th, vote on it that day, so we can get everything resolved. And we don't run the risk of falling into a bad position with the interest rate.
So April 19th, that meeting is tentative, we may not have that, but if we have it, that we already advertised for as other items necessary, so that covers that. We usually have that conversation at the April 19th meeting. I can let you know that if there's any other information we can gather by that point, and then if we want to proceed, we can come back at the
Yeah, so if you want to take action on a debt proceeding, you would have to advertise separately for the debt proceedings for that meeting.
Right, but I'm talking just having a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Yep.
So you want to answer the motion, so. Yeah, because I think, Mr. White, what you were saying is let's spend some time just thinking about this. Don't rush into it, have the conversation in April, and then vote on the framework resolution today. I think what you were suggesting, right?
Program is 12 basis points.
Because, exactly, even like, today is not enough.
Yeah, counts. Great.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out this evening.
You got it.
I'll see you next time.
Gotta keep it moving. Beautiful night for a drive around Berks Canyon.
It is a beautiful. Selling deals, though, I'm selling deals.
Yes. Well, everyone's trying to take advantage of
Yeah.
good rates.
Good stuff.
So, thank you, Mr. Kramer. So as we transition, Mr. Walker's going to put up the next presentation. We wanted to just spend a few minutes. You probably have seen the push that we did about the newsletter to the community. I shared it with the board in the weekly update. This is something I am so proud of. This is the work of Mr. Volker, Mrs. Winkler, and Mrs. Bruder, as well as the entire admin team. But Mrs. Winkler, Mrs. Bruder are the ones that really were the mastermind behind putting this together. It was a great opportunity for them to grow in terms of the marketing side of the school district. And I think the work that they did in this newsletter is something that we can be really proud of. This is something from a template standpoint we want to proceed with on a quarterly basis, so that we can continue pushing the positive messages of the school district. We'll do another edition in June, focusing on graduation, and then as we start the school year, we'll do another school year edition as we head into the next school year. For me, this is kind of that culmination of us going from a paper newsletter, mailing it out to every household, becoming extremely cost prohibitive, to trying to get our messaging out on the social media outlets and the website, to kind of that in-between of let's make some purposeful articles and let's really highlight the phenomenal things that are happening in the school district. By the way, that is so distracting to talk about while I'm talking. I can just read. So this for me is that culmination of the two things of really highlighting some key things, that the great stuff that's happening in our school district that sometimes people might overlook on the website. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Volker to walk us through the newsletter and kind of his thought process as he helped to guide this presentation.
Sure. Thank you for that introduction. This is something that I'm extremely honored to be able to present, but this is one of those definitions of like a true team collaborative effort. This never would have come together without everybody chipping in. And what we're trying to do is make sure that we're doing a better job as a school district to tell our story. Because as you know, we live in a very social media heavy world, and pretty much anybody who has a social media account gets to say what they're thinking and what they're seeing. And oftentimes those individuals don't get to see what's kind of happening behind the curtain. And we're excited to share many of those wonderful things that are occurring within our school district. So again, what I'm sharing, I'm not going to read word for word through the entire newsletter, unless you'd like me to. But I can see in the eyes, we don't. But what I want to do is kind of talk about just the way that we have it laid out and a little bit of a rationale as to why. So we tried to create a template, a way that we can have these sections, so there's a similar and consistent feel for the readers of the newsletter. So we're going to start it off. There's always going to be some type of topic here on the first page. We tried to make sure we had the table of contents. Everything's numbered and labeled so people understand. Like, if I just want to see that message from the superintendent, all right, where do I go? Oh, it's right there. And then we strongly believe in students first. So then we believe that the first thing that we wanted right after the superintendent's message was from one of our students about what's going on now. So we have a student's message right there. And we also tried to pull out student quotes so we can see some of those. Maybe I don't have time to read the whole thing, but what are some of those big takeaways? So we can, at a glance, pull that information. Again, keeping with that students first messaging, we thought it was a really good idea to kind of have a platform for all of our students, K to 12, with just some snippets of what's going on across the district. So you can look at a picture, read a caption, and get a pretty good idea. Here's some neat things that are going on. Then we take a look into each of the buildings. So starting at the elementary, we then work our way through the district. So we said to Ms. Kelly, hey, what are 3 neat things that are going on down at the elementary right now? And she did a really fantastic job of working with her team and pulling out 3 highlights for us as the district readers to be able to see. Then we went to the intermediate and middle school. And again, you can see there's a similar feel for each of the schools, but yet it has its own distinct look and feel. So again, same thing with Mr. Farina at the intermediate and middle school that you'll see with Mr. Jinich at the high school. What are some of those key things that are going on in your building? One of our district goals was also to make sure that we focus on that messaging. What is our vision? What is our mission? What are our core values? And we tried to make sure, you can see across the bottom of our pages, we're trying to continually go back and harp on those messages. So by the time we get to the high school, we get to see, oh, here's a really neat bocce ball story. I know Mr. Geist is heavily involved in. We have woodshop, we have hands-on. What does music look like in a virtual world? What does woodshop look like? So it's an opportunity for people to kind of see behind the curtain and see what's going on within our schools. Obviously, the virtual academy is a huge part of who we are as a school district, so we thought it was appropriate that Mrs. Honich had her dedicated pages. So similar to the other buildings, we have a spot that's specific for the virtual academy. As a school district, we strongly believe that our athletics program helps build character within our students. So Mr. Geist has a section that's dedicated to our athletics. And we're really excited at how this page came out. Hopefully you liked it too. Every month at our board meetings, we have an opportunity to recognize some of our amazing staff that go way above and beyond. At one board meeting is great. We posted on Twitter. That's great. But we wanted a home for where people could see in a consolidated location who these people are and what they're doing. So once again, we included a New Heights Awards section within the newsletter. And we also have links in here. It's a dynamic document. So if anybody wants to nominate anybody, they can just click on an interactive link that's right here. As a school district, we also very much value the partnership we have with our community. So we wanted a dedicated section that's focused on our community. What are those events that are going on within our community? And we'll highlight different ones for each quarterly newsletter that we do. Again, if I didn't know anything about the school district, but I were just to pick up this newsletter, we wanted people to get a sense for who we are as a school district and what it is that we value. And hopefully, by going through this, you get that sense. And then we also created one last section here that's really focused on what do we as a district want people to know about our school district? What are those key points of interest that are going on? So in here we're highlighting the elementary building project. Obviously this has been a year unlike any other, so we thought, hey, let's talk about it. And this was actually what we decided to do as a focus story for this newsletter. And as such, we recorded a video, And we have interviews with a number of our teachers across the district. And that video, I think, came together very well. I'd like to publicly thank Ms. Carly Warman, who spent countless hours there in the editing booth, just going through and splicing everything until I stopped nitpicking. And then we have another great story, which is the work of Mrs. Kircher, the grants that we have been having the opportunity to pursue this year has again been unlike any other year. With that, there's a lot of work, but a great amount of opportunities for our school district to pursue things that we never would have been able to pursue before. And then again, it's not only about being able to tell our story, but it's about an opportunity for people to engage in more of that communication that the school district is putting out. So we have in here our social media counseling from the elementary all through the buildings, through the district offices. Again, places for people to come get information about what's going on in our fantastic school district. So that's the newsletter from a 30,000 foot view, why we set it up the way that we did, and hopefully it's something that you're excited about as well.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Again, we just want to spend a few minutes this evening, probably a chance to look at it just as a public way to display this and recognize the great work. Mrs. Winkler, if you've both her and students.
So can you just remind us quickly, how did this get disseminated and to whom?
It went out through the school messenger system to all our parents.
Okay, so you have to have a kid in the district in order to have received it.
We didn't have any other, you had to have an email account to be able to disseminate that.
Okay. And old email accounts from like alumni kids, if you will, do we keep is that in the old database anywhere, or do they roll off once the child graduates? Do we lose access to those family emails?
So I can talk about student accounts. A year after graduation, student accounts are gone. As far as information that's retained within our student information system about our parents, that should still be archived within that system.
So I just wonder if the goal is trying to get the work, get this message out as broadly as possible. If there's benefit to beyond district families, but in other words, taxpayers, that's a resource that it sounds like you have access to that you might want to consider. The other thing is, at minimum, I post a link to it on the website.
It is.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's there. Actually, early when we first posted it, there was a big interactive display where they could go right into it there. It's been posted on social media, emailed out, and I think all of our building principals have been making sure that they talk about it, any opportunity they have.
Yeah. It's really well done, and so the more people that get eyes on it, it sounds like that would make you happy. So, you've got email addresses that you have access to that maybe historically we wouldn't use for day-to-day stuff, but on a quarterly basis. Because we used to mail to all the districts to all the households in the district. So it's not like we're violating any privacy. In the past, we did communicate to those households, even if they didn't have kids enrolled currently. So to think about maybe.
Yeah, so again, without going into too many weeds, we are working on almost like an alumni group that it's not ready yet. But that is something that we are pursuing. Cool.
I will tell you, great job, everyone. It was very effective because this morning Friends of Brandywine received a $500 donation on the GoFundMe. And I think it was specifically from
That's awesome.
the newsletter. So that was great.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wright, for your work there.
Yeah.
Under $6,000 and 25 more meals for families at Easter, so that is awesome.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilbur. Thank you.
No, I'm on.
job.
All right, moving on to board director report. Did I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
All right, so just to start off, I'm going to pass these around. They are 3 annual reports. There's an annual report from Council of Chemical Abuse, an annual report from Berks County Community Foundation, and an annual report from BBEC, Berks Business Education Coalition, as well as a leadership legacy document that came from PSBA. So these are documents that came to the school district. I'm here to speak to the board to see those. And you, if I get boring talking, you can read those and send those to me. The couple items in the superintendent report, there is the dispensing of minutes from the March 1st meeting. Any adjustments have to be made to those minutes? Okay. We have policies. So the policies that are in B are second reading policies. Those will become official policies as of this evening. Item C is policies that are up for, I apologize, like B is the first reading and C is the second reading. So B, we have new revisions that are in place, job-related work experience, working periods, professional development, and then we have people that we are ready to retire. So in looking at those policies, we are still working through the combination of all 3 sections of the employment policies into one. No really significant changes to note within those policies. If you had a chance to read them, you'll notice that it's pretty much a fit from what our old policies were to the new ones. Any questions on the policies for this one? Dr. Carter did respond back to Mr. Wagner and I when he said he wasn't going to be able to meet, that he had no updates or recommendations or changes on the policies. Mr. Wagner, turn back over to you.
Moving on to committee reports. Mrs. Hughes, BCIU.
Yeah, I the BCIU Board of Directors met on Thursday, March 18th. The written report is in your packets. There's a couple of real quick things I want to talk about, bring to everyone's attention and make note of. So in March, I think everyone's well aware that the BCIU and its peers across the state, 28 total intermediate units around the state, were given the opportunity to be hosted for the COVID vaccine clinics that Governor Wolf and the state had put forth. My understanding is that not only did things run extremely smoothly and very successful, but most importantly, more than 5,000 educators and affiliated personnel in school districts across Berks County have received through the BCIU vaccine clinic the single dose Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So, Mr. Potter, I don't know if you have any specific data for like branding line staff that were able to attend, but all of the feedback seems to be extremely favorable, and obviously people who were able to get vaccines were very grateful.
So we had over 130 branding line staff that were able to get the vaccine. There was a second or final round that came through, and so any staff member, final call went out to any staff member that wanted the vaccine had the opportunity to get that vaccine. So I feel like we had a great opportunity for our staff, and that included our existing staff, our branding employees, as well as contracted employees, as well as student teachers. So there's a pretty broad network of opportunity there for our people that are connected to education.
Terrific. And just a note of thanks through the BCIU, the feedback in terms of the cooperation and the communication from superintendents and your individual support, Mr. Cotter, as well as all of the staff, just really helped things go smoothly. So there's great appreciation inside the IU organization for the support that they received in such a quick turnaround time to make this thing happen and come off so well. Yeah. So thank you, and if you could share that, the gratitude, that would be great.
Absolutely. Yeah. BCIU did an awesome job of putting this whole thing together, but as you mentioned, quick turnaround. They said they kind of got the word from the state. We had less than 48 hours, 72 hours in some cases to be able to put this whole thing together. So it was a very quick turnaround, but those that wanted the opportunity to get the vaccine had that. And that was really a blessing, Scott, in terms of
timeline, but being able to get the vaccine very quickly.
Excellent. All right, moving along, just a quick note, I'll be emailing to everybody, a document that's called the Legislative Directory. The IU is publishing this, and they're rolling it out at the upcoming COLA, Committee on Legislative Action Committee meeting, but it's a really good resource guide from a legislative perspective in understanding who the players are and what geographies they cover. And then the final note, just, again, I mentioned this last month, but on Thursday, April 15th, there's a 1-hour webinar or seminar, if you will, that's virtual. The theme is the Keeping Peace Safe Symposium that the IU sponsors every year. Last year, it has to be postponed, but this 1 hour is sort of a precursor to a fall conference, which will be in October, but on from 10 in the morning to 11 on Thursday, April 15th. The topic is raising awareness, and they're going to talk about threat assessment, school safety, and work climate. The presenter is the head of the National Threat Assessment Center in the U.S. Secret Service. So, pretty well connected speaker. If you have an hour of free time and you have interest in, that kind of topic, you're welcome to participate. Those are the only items that I wanted to specifically point out, and excuse me, our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, April 15th.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sheets, BCTC.
BCTC. So we met on 3/24/21 at East Campus. I attended virtually. Really nothing new to report outside of the fact that Dr. Kraft announced that he is going to be retiring. So for those of us that have served on the BCTC board, Dr. Kraft has been in that position 9 years now. During that time, he has really done a fantastic job at the BCTC, taking Career Technical Center really kind of to a next level, getting it to the point where it is really recognized as the premier Career Technical Center in Pennsylvania, as well as the East Coast, kind of outpacing much larger areas in our own kind of little Berks County. The hiring process is underway. We've had a couple of different interview sessions. We hope to have an answer with the name of the new candidate here sometime within the next month. Hopefully we'll have that for you from the next board meeting. Our next meeting is on the 28th. It's going to be held at the West Campus. That concludes my report on that. I'm just going to jump ahead to Negotiation and Compensation Committee. I do have to get a note out to all my members of my Negotiation and Compensation Committee. We will have something to report next month. That concludes my report.
Yes, sir.
There's no report this time.
Mrs. Wallace, COLA.
So like Liz had mentioned, we are about to start the second 10-week period of getting targeted action out to our legislators. So letter writing, phone calls, all of that is going to be shared and Liz's email to you guys to get out there and be the voice for our kids in our school district. So that's going to run from April 26th to June 30th.
Thank you. Dr. Hartman, have anything to add for policy, strategic plan and goals?
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Building and Construction Committee, just have bids coming in on
Next Wednesday.
Yep.
Everything's working very well. The elementary school, we're transitioning spaces that they'll be taking over the library in the next few weeks.
All right. No other additions? Can we get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Eisenberg?
Yes.
Mrs. Henry? Yes. Mrs. Hume?
Yes.
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Wallace?
Yeah.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
That's 68. 78.
We had a jump.
Thank you.
Moving on to business and operations report. Can I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second. Monica, we'll turn it over to you.
I need to get the S's and T's right now, sorry. So a couple items here under the business operations report. The A to E are the general
funds, as you are used to seeing. The business office put those together. If there are any specific questions, I can try to answer those or get that information to you. Any questions on A to E? Under special education, there's a few items to discuss this evening. We had the approval of the Berks County Intermediate Unit Special Education costs. That is for specifically additional costs we might take advantage of for our school districts for early intervention, mobility, those sort of things. So that agreement is in there for the approval for this school year. It's a late approval, but it is for the 2021 school year. Item 2 is for an agreement with the Meadows Behavioral Center, where we have occasionally students that end up going to that center. And so the cost for the district to utilize those services for 2021, 21-22, as well as the following year, 22-23, would be $67 a day. And then finally, this is always a great experience. It's called the SWEET program, Summer Work Experience Assessment Program. It provides our students in high school that are eligible for summer additional supports through the special education world, that they can do work experience here at the school district. And so we will be hosting the SWEET program this year. Occasionally it's at other sites, but we have the opportunity to support this year. And at this point, we're looking at approximately 6 students. Under curriculum and technology, we have the annual agreement with the Berks County Education Technology Pool Council. And so that is a partnership with the Sweet Stevens, Katz and Williams law firm. That is the law firm that represents us on the special education side. They also have partnered as a consortium for the county to provide legal supports. This rate is $50 higher than what it was in previous years, but it's all driven and dependent on how many districts participate. So our rate for next year would be $615 to participate in that consortium agreement, provide that legal support for technology reasons. Letter H is for facility maintenance items. We have the ratification of the joint purchasing bid for natural gas, which was shared with the board previously. We have the approval of the CoStar's agreement for a set of doors for the middle school. That is for delivery doors to be replaced. There are phased approach to doing this. So Mr. Wetzel is looking next to work on cafeteria doors as well as gymnasium door replacements in this building. Item 3 is to approve an agreement to replace the elementary kitchen tile ceiling. That would be a cost of $12,643. This came in very favorable. We had a budget amount of $20,000. Likewise, item 4 is for Division 9 contracting to replace the hallway tile throughout the entire first floor of the elementary school. So if you remember back, we had this as a bid alternate, and originally there was a plan to put basically like plastic sheeting down the sides of the hallway to hide that tile that's there. We got some preliminary quotes at that point, and for the amount that was in the bid alternate, we decided that we could take down all the tile and put new tile up for the amount of what the bid alternate was. So we decided to take that option. We put that out to bid, and this bid came in very well. Again, we had budgeted of around $100,000, and this came in at $76,777. So it'll be a great update to our hallway areas of the elementary school, kind of pulling the whole facility together as we do the office addition, the library addition, the gymnasium addition, and now the hallways all together. Item 5 is $712 for high school duct collector fire suppression system review. Item 6 is the approval of the DCIU trash removal services. This is an RFP done. It is going to Republic Services. This is an increase, as you can see there. The prior bid was $16,660. Really, the reason for this increase is due to recycling charges. Recycling charges are going up. We have to participate in the recycling due to the mandate within the borough. So that is a cost that we have to assume, and it is a little bit higher, but again, that's due to the recycling. Item I is for the approval of the Berks County BCTC budget. That is an increase of 1.35% overall, and the Brandywine Heights share is an increase of $16,010. That increase is driven, the way they run and calculate the BCTC budget is driven all by student participation. They look at a 3-year rolling average of the amount of students that attend BCTC, and that's what they call the proportionate share of the entire budget. So our proportionate shares are a little bit higher this year because our increase of participation is higher, which is a good thing. We have students going to the CTC. It just means that we pay a little bit more. So coupled with the 1.35% increase and the number of students going up, that's why our increase is at $600,000. Again, BCTC has done a really good job of understanding the struggles of all the county school districts and streamlining their budget to come in at a lower rate there, 1.35%. Item J is to approve myself as the official designated approver of purchase orders during this interim period, as well as the official signer for bank purposes on the banking document. So in lieu of a business manager, as superintendent, I would ask that you approve me to be that person. As soon as we get a business manager candidate, we'll transition those back over to a business manager. Item K is to approve Precision HR, which is a company we partnered with for additional custodial services to help the school district out during this return to in-person instruction. Providing those services will help us during the lunch period, as well as just daily cleaning throughout the daytime and students are in session. Item L is to approve the PASBO organization, Pennsylvania School Business Officials, to conduct and partner with them to conduct a business manager search. The rate is $150 an hour, not to exceed $2,000. Item N is to approve Ritu. Ritu is the company we partnered with to do land surveying and to combine the deeds of the school district and the high school with the additional properties that the district is looking to purchase from East Penn Manufacturing. Ritu is going through that process. They've surveyed all the new land. They're ready to put the rezoning paperwork in the Walsall Township. And to be able to combine the existing parcel of the high school with the new parcel of land, we have to now go through the process of rezoning the existing land. So this cost is to rezone the existing land and then combine the new parcel with the existing land into one parcel for the entire district property, and then to rezone that appropriately to be for educational purposes. So that is the reason for this additional cost. It was not anticipated up front, but in working through the process of the township, rezoning the existing facility is going to happen currently in the tools altogether. That's what that is. I believe that is all the items under the business operation. Any questions on those?
Good job. Strong work.
Well done. Can we get a roll call on
Mrs. Henry?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim?
Yeah.
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mr. Chauncey?
Yes.
Mr. Weiser? Yes. Mrs. Eisenhart?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
7 yeas, motion carries.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the superintendent's report. Could I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
All right, what's yours? Forgive me, I wanted to do this under business operations. I forgot. If you look in your folder, there's a document that looks like this. It's a slideshow deck that has a few slides in here with the budget update. So just as a recap, March 29th, last Monday, if we forgot, which we did, but we were together virtually to talk about the staffing elements of the budget. We at that point, leading that meeting, said we would look at where we are from the budget perspective and try to give an update to the budget at this meeting. So just as a high level, the first couple slides are lists from previous presentations, but I thought it's good just to give us a recap and have that information right in front of you. So the first slide, which is really slide 2, is just an overview of where we are with revenues and expenditures. Slide 3 is an overview of the revenue summary. I highlighted the key differences in the revenue summary. Obviously, we know this, but it's the ESSER funds. If you look at where the federal dollars were in the 2021 budget compared to where they are for the 21-22, you can see the significant impact on the revenue, and specifically due to those ESSER funds. Slide 4, similarly, a pretty sharp increase in our expenditures, but that sharp increase is directly related to those ESSER funds. And as Mr. Nyman put that slide back together, he also calculated what does it look like for the overall expenditure increase this year without those ESSER funds. So you can see it's a 1.8% increase just in normal operating expenses if you take out that $2+ million in ESSER funds. Slide 5 we had a conversation at the last meeting, March 29th, to say, I remember seeing some of those major driving factors of what's causing the spike of that 1.8 or $500,000 increase. Where is that coming from? And so this came from the presentation that Mr. Nyman did February 15th, and he put together basically the major drivers that are contributing to the increases on the 21-22 budget, and he has those items in there. So as a recap, I put those in there for the board to review that, just to have that in front of you and more readily available at your fingertips. But you can see there's multiple drivers from everything from PSERS to earned income tax dollars not coming in as strong as what we hoped for, salary increases that are always part of the budget process, other costs like transportation increases and things like that. Finally, what I really want to spend the time on this evening is that slide 6, and that's focusing in. I combined all the different budget presentations and reductions that have been made over the time to put the whole package together so you can see in one spot what those changes have been. So as you can see, we started with a $1.5 million deficit. We have made some adjustments down to get to where we are right now. So where we are today is an $81,000 deficit. That's where we are right now. I firmly believe we can get that down to a 0. But let me just walk through this with you. So again, we started at a 1.5. The medical cost, the medical plan for the school district, that came in at a 0% increase with the Berks Consortium for healthcare insurance. So that saved $73,000. We removed the van. I purchased the van with this fiscal year's money, and we were not able to do that with the truck though, because we weren't able to receive that before July 1st. So we'll look next year to talk about the purchase of a truck, but we did pull that out of the budget. So if things look good and favorable in the budget next year, we can, as we move through the actual expenditures, we can look to purchase that truck next year, but we did pull that out of the budget. So the van and truck are removed. That was a $90,000 savings. There was out of placement costs for special education that was removed. We put a conservative number in there originally as part of the budget process with some concern that was happening. But in working with Dr. Reese and with Mr. Nyman, we believe that we can remove $200,000 out of district placement costs. It seems like a huge number, but remember, when you think out of district placement costs, that's only a couple students. So we do feel strong, secure, and say we can remove $200,000 out of that. The budgetary reserve, every year we put aside funds, $200,000 typically, for budgetary reserve. What happens if there's a worst case scenario? We need to have that buffer room, so if we cap out on our expenditures and something catastrophic happens, we can't exceed that expenditure of the budget originally approved. So we get into a major jam. So by having a budgetary reserve and having the extra $200,000, we have the additional cash to be able to pay for an emergency. Likewise, we have that flexibility within the expenditures to go higher if necessary. So because of the ESSER funds this year, we have a higher expenditure limit, and because of those funds, we also feel that we can remove $100,000 out of that $200,000 budgetary reserve. This is you did a perfect segue for me earlier when you asked about kind of where are we headed. So these next items are just kind of where are we headed. The earned income tax, that originally Mr. Nyman pulled out $180,000 of the projection. In going back through that at the March meeting, we already put $100,000 back into out of that what was pulled out of the revenue side. So that's back in. The interest off of district investments, again, he had pulled out $150,000 from that interest that was anticipated for this year. These are more revenue sides of the budget, but he pulled $150,000 down on the revenue, but we're putting $100,000 back in. So that's the $100,000 there. Delinquent real estate tax collections, he feels that we can go up $50,000 if you want to be specific to be exact, but delinquent real estate tax collections to go back up to $51,000 there. A reduction is the Kutztown University interns. So right now we budgeted for 3 Kutztown University interns. Those interns would be Kutztown University specialists. We had budgeted for 3, this time can only give us 2, so that the 1 automatically is a reduction. The other 2, if we're able to get them from the second university, we would pull out the general budget and pay for that through the grant money through the ESSERs. So we can basically save that pool $46,500 from those reading sessions. So we would still get the 2, they would just be grant funded, not funded by the general budget. And so because it's grant funded, we can pull that out of the budget. So that's the $46,000 savings there. The PSERS committed fund balance, we had talked, Mr. Nyman had built that in previously, and the tech assigned fund balance that was being built in previously. So that's using fund balance to offset some of the PSERS increases and using fund balance to offset the technology. Just as a recap there, we're looking to purchase technology for the next cycle of student computers up front, because if we have to do it in the normal budget cycle, we can't buy it until July 1. It comes in, end of July, early August, and then we have a mad rush to try to get it in the kids in August. So by doing that, we'll use the fund balance savings account to pay for that. And it's kind of a wash. Finally, the PSERS reimbursement adjustment, so that's $100,000 back into the budget. Mr. Nyman feels that the PSERS reimbursement, we get half of that back from the state on what is put out for the PSERS reimbursement from the state, and so he feels that there's wiggle room in there, because that constantly is changing. It's a really big number, and that's constantly changing throughout the year based off salaries. And he feels that we can get $100,000 additional revenue on the revenue side for the PSERS side of that budget. So there is the tax increase we discussed earlier is at the 1.5%. That is the $294,000. So when you calculate that all out, we are still short $81,000. That is, we're going to continue to work on that, but we feel pretty confident with where we are right now in terms of that dollar. So to kind of recap everything there, we do have the tax increase built in at 1.5%. There is increased revenue sources. So we have the EIT, the delinquent taxes, and the interest rates. Those are all lagging behind right now. This is you again, you had the perfect segue for that. We are about $1 million year-to-date budget short of that. Now again, there's another quarter of the year left, but I think we can anticipate that we're going to fall short of what this year's budget is. And I just want to make sure, kind of as a board, we're all aware of that. At the same time, we're saying for next year, we're anticipating that we're going to return to some kind of normalcy in terms of the earned income tax coming back to normal. The economy is looking better, as even Mr. Craig mentioned that. The economy is looking better. People are getting back to work. Things are starting to return to some normalcy. And so we're anticipating that EIT to go back, some of the interest rates to go back up in terms of the money that we have, the short-term interest for the switching funds. So by increasing some of those revenues, that will help us to make budget. Whereas originally, by looking at the budget, Mr. Nyman did some of the worst case scenarios of what this year's looking like back in December, January, not knowing that we might be running with the right stuff right for next year. One of the highlights here, though, so those are some of the downsides of revenue is not quite where we want to be for EIT, delinquent, and regular interest, but we have the highest collection of taxes in over 20 years, 96.5%. So I know we had a concern of are people going to be able to pay their taxes this year. We have 96.5% collection rate this year. So I think that is a huge number to talk about in terms of percentage of taxes that we're collecting. And the revenue on the taxes is higher than what was budgeted last year. That's because people are doing additions and those sort of things, and you get reassessed as the taxes go up. So we actually budgeted 18 million-ish and came in at 19 million. So that's another good news story. So hit you with some bad news first, and then hit you with some good news to kind of wrap it up at the end. Last couple comments there. We're going to continue to look at this. We're going to continue to just poke it and prod and pull every kind of string we can to get this thing lower. We have to close that $81,000 gap, and then if we decide to move forward with the loan, obviously that's going to be another $30,000. So we can say about $100,000. We still have to tweak the budget here to get us to give you that proposed final in May, and then June 14th, at the regular meeting, will be on the budget adoption. That's the recap I have for the budget. Questions?
The only question is, the one from Charlotte is, can we sharpen the pencil enough to make room for an additional $30,000? So that's the $1 billion or $2 million.
$2 million, yeah. Admittedly, we're really tight right now in terms of trying to pull and take extra things out of the budget. We're working hard on it. We're going to continue to. We know the goal to get that 100,000 out the goal.
Nice summary though. Add this all together.
Yeah, so I couldn't get it to you before, but with Easter holiday in there, and then with trying to coordinate with Mr. Nyman's schedules, immediately we were working on that through the weekend and today. So my apologies if this didn't get to you sooner. All right, superintendent report. That's what I'm doing earlier. Sorry. So we have just a couple items under superintendent report. Item A is there was a miss in the calendar for next year, 2021-22 calendar. This would be adding our early dismissal and service day on April 8th. That was just a miss, so my apologies on that, but that's what the approval for this calendar update would be for the 9th. I'm going to skip B for a second, go to item C. Again, this was a total miss on my part. We had approved this activity exception for our graduating seniors back in a previous board meeting. I think it was the January or February board meeting. For some reason, I put the active 80-day makeup day as June 3rd and 4th, which is Thursday and Friday. Those are student days. We can't use those as the active 80 day, which would be using the service day to count as an education day. So that should really be that October 12th Columbus Day, and June 7th, which would be that Monday, when we could use the service day to count as the senior students day. So again, you had already approved this, but I had put the wrong dates in there, so my apologies on that. But that is the 2 dates there. Finally, before I get to B, kindergarten registration, just as an update to the board, we are currently at 56 students registered for kindergarten for next year. That's low. So I've been tracking where we have been where our February enrollments are, because that's our first round of enrollment since 2009. And that is the lowest number we've had since 2009. So I don't know if it's an anomaly that just people aren't registering because of COVID and people are a little concerned, or if it truly is a lower enrollment year. So we're going to continue to carefully track that. If the average in February enrollment to what we start the school year, that comparison is about 24 student difference. So if you take where we are February and add 24 students, that's usually where we start the school year, one average. So we'll see. I'm going to continue to monitor that. If that would continue to remain very low, we would have to evaluate, do we truly need 5 kindergartens, or do we just need 4 kindergartens, and still have a little lower class size. So I'll continue to monitor that. I will get back to the board, keep you updated every morning as those numbers come in.
On that trend, do we have access through the daycare centers in the local community to try and help us predict that based on head counts at that age range?
Yeah, we have a really close connection with those local preschools. They help us with the enrollment process. They help us with those predictions of where they are. It seems that, at least from the daycare's perspective, it's fairly normal, but for some reason we're not seeing enrollment here. So it could mean that the daycare's normal. We're just, the enrollment's normal, and just, all the kids are in daycare, we're not seeing it. That's a hard one. Just get there. So we're going to continue to monitor down there.
Kindergarten job for the White Sox.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's what they're doing. They're pushing it all over. So item B. And the reason I pushed item B is that it's a little bit of a longer conversation. I'm going to ask Mr. Volker to help me present this one. But the idea here in a high level, and I'll let Mr. Volker go into some of the details, is we want to improve. Every year we do a summer learning opportunity. And we do that in cooperation with United Way. We usually get a $5,000 United Way grant, which is great to fund the program. We do it at the primary grades, We do basically a summer reading camp, make it a fun, enjoyable experience. Our reading specialists and teachers run the camp. With COVID, we're looking to expand that. We're looking to make that be a holistic approach K-12. Our summer learning proposal, summer learning camp would be K-8 prep focused. It would be a little bit more costly, but we'd be able to offset this cost. Again, United Way still coming through with a $5,000 grant, and we'd be using the ESSER funds to offset this kind of the one-time COVID, kind of a COVID summer learning camp. And the concept behind this isn't to be a extended school year, it's really to be a very fun learning camp. And that's really the premise and the mindset of what Mr. Volker has done to put this together. So this is really his opportunity to share all his thoughts and opportunities, because he's really put this whole philosophy and program together. So, Mr. Volker, I'll turn it over to you and the right work you've done together since.
I think you stated it all. Any questions?
Okay, there you go.
No, just, again, thanks for the opportunity. While I'm standing here talking, this is a collaborative effort of the full administrative team. All of that means that this is not Tom Volker's idea. We've been spending a lot of time over the last several months, honestly, trying to figure out how can we address learning loss from a systemic, what can we do, within the hours and year that we have the students in front of us, as well as that extended school year opportunity. What can we do? Excuse me. Don't you come and talk. What do we do during the summer, where we have some additional learning opportunities? And how can we design an educational environment that would not only be targeted, because we have to target specific skills, because we have the data to say, you know what, this student really needs this. And that's what we should do as an educational institution. We don't want to just make it drill and kill, though. We need to make it fun and engaging. And so we had many conversations, and if you don't mind, I'm going to break this up into 3 different parts. The first is we had a conversation about K-5. How can we roll out some type of summer learning opportunity that's fun and engaging for our K-5 students? And we started having a conversation talking about a summer camp. What would this look like? Because students have different opportunities to go to different places. What can we do to design like a summer camp that's fun and engaging, where students come together, they have opportunities to collaborate, but yet then they go and they can focus on something that's really targeted to their needs. There's some small group work where they're focused on specific skills that they need. But then that's all tied back to some bigger theme where they can come together and play with it and have an opportunity to actually just get to be together and be kids at the same time. So we're excited that USDA came out with their free lunch program. So lunch is not really an issue because we're able to provide free lunches for everybody. And in the schedule, we decided, well, you know what, we want to make sure that they have some time for like just play together, because there's a lot that students learn out on the playground. So we wanted to make sure that there was an opportunity for that. But yet again, that's tied back to a bigger theme that has some key focuses instructionally, because it's not just playtime. We're trying to close some instructional gaps. So we kind of laid out a plan of what this could look like, where we target some ELA skills, and then we also focus on some mathematics skills. And we put together, and you can kind of see in this proposal on the back of the first page, we put together a tentative schedule of what this could look like. Again, this is very tentative. This is, we're framing it up for a potential for that K-5 model. I'm going to skip over the middle school grades, and I'm going to talk about the high school, because that was a little problematic for us. How do we make sure that we have all the teachers that we need for all the different areas where the students need support? And honestly, staffing is probably going to be an issue. When I sit in our Berks County Curriculum Coordinators meetings, and all the MEs across the county, we all get together and we talk about these hot topic issues. Summer learning is one of those hot topic issues right now. And everybody across the county and the Commonwealth are all a little concerned that teachers are fatigued. It's been a very hard year. Not just for students, not just for teachers, families, everyone's feeling it, right? So we're a little concerned we might not have enough staff to do everything we want to do. I'm going to come back to that a little bit. But specific to high school, we have to just acknowledge we're not going to have a social studies teacher, a German teacher, a physics teacher. We're just not going to be able to do that. So we had conversations about how can we make this work within our environment. And really, we had some conversations with Mrs. Honich about how we can partner with the Virtual Academy. But then as soon as we start talking about virtual academy, we start having some concerns that students have been in a virtual environment and maybe they weren't successful in that virtual environment. So now we're starting to say, well, how can we solve all of these problems? Admittedly, it's not a perfect solution, but what we're proposing here is we have a teacher mentor, where that teacher is partnered with a group of students, and they'd be touching base with those students every single day, helping them progress through some of the content that they need to learn. They have a sounding board. Ideally, we like to make sure we have a secondary teacher that's strong in ELA and a secondary teacher that's strong in math. And obviously, we have, being a smaller school, we have a number of teachers that have multiple certifications. That could help us in this capacity. But again, the theory would be, it would be more of a mentor teacher than an actual instructor. The instructor we can get through the virtual academy. But we need to make sure that those students have that extra hand, that extra support to be successful in the online environment if they weren't successful before. So then we came back to the middle school population, trying to figure out which camp does this fit in better. Does this fit in more of a K-5 model, or does this fit in a little bit better in the secondary model? And we landed on, we actually think that the 6 to 8 model could fit with what we're doing K-5, but just make it a little bit more age appropriate. So it would be a similar type of feel, look and feel for the students in grades K through 8, where it would be almost camp-esque, but yet it would have some time where it's very targeted on specific skills, but then also some, again, thematic, collaborative learning opportunities as well. So again, the 30,000 foot view, that's what we're looking to roll out this summer. In this plan, there are a couple of things that we mentioned and a couple of things we did not mention. One thing we mentioned in here is we're looking to have some type of camp director, somebody that can help oversee this, because admittedly, we could need some additional help this summer. Our admin team has to start planning for things that we have to adjust next year, and our plates are all a little full, we could use a hand. And what we're looking to do is combine some of the ideas that made Camp Invention successful, which Mr. Donato runs for us during the summer, typically the second week in June. And then also combine it with the ideas that we have from the Ready, Set, Read program that has been successful for us now in elementary. So we've been taking a lot of those ideas and combining it together, and that's where we got the camp director idea. And that's also where we got some of the planning and preparation time that our teachers told us was so valuable for the Ready, Set, Read program. So there's an hour of planning that we have for our teachers daily, as well as they have a 1 week lead up time to prep for this summer learning opportunities. So those are things that we have built in here. It's really hard to get a cost estimate for this, knowing that it's very dependent upon the number of students that want to participate. We will look, again, pending your approval, to make it completely free for all our families, free lunches, free education. But one of the things that we don't have in here that we were doing a little bit more research on since this was put together, we did some more digging on transportation. And right now, that's not built into this, but if that's something we would like to do, we can estimate it would be approximately $10,000 to provide transportation for all our families for the summer learning camps. That would be 3 buses that would run every day to camp.
Is this geared for everyone, or just like your bubble kids, or?
So right now, we want to offer this as an opportunity for both remediation as well as enrichment. So it would be for anybody that wants to continue their learning at any level. So that's the goal of this summer learning opportunity. If we end up in a situation where we're really handcuffed due to staffing, and trust me, we'll continue to explore every staffing opportunity that we have, which includes partnerships with local colleges and universities. I've already been in conversations with the local intermediate unit, because I said I don't want to get into a tug of war against surrounding school districts. We're all in the same problem together here. So the intermediate unit is actually serving as a point of contact for all the surrounding colleges and universities to see if we can get additional hands from students that are coming through the programs. Ultimately, the success of your program, truly, it rests with the quality of your staff, the quality of your teachers. And We want to make sure we have a balanced approach. We can't just go with all students that are coming through. And I don't think we'll have enough veteran teachers to handle everything that we're expecting with the camp. So it's going to take all hands on deck type of approach to staff this appropriately. I feel like I was talking about something else. Questions, comments, concerns? Oh, that's what I was saying. If staffing does become an issue and we can only service X number of students, we would be prioritizing students that either would be receiving some special education services or are identified as some of our bulk students. Those that need that additional support. But we're hoping not to have that problem.
As a former educator, when I read that last evening after the night was emailing a little bit with Tom, I just thought this sounds like such an amazing program, given the fact that we are already concerned with learning loss. And I'd asked about transportation because let's face it, the kids that really need this academic intervention, their parents are the ones that are working 9 to 5 and aren't going to have the option to bring their child to the school to get this learning that they need. So it sounds like a big number, but if we really truly want to invest in this program and in getting this extra support for these kids, I think this is our first step and our first chance at getting our kids a little bit closer to getting back on track academically, making up for the lost time that we did have. So kudos to you for putting together this program and the team, because you have a lot on your plate and you're all concerned about the academic loss, and I think this is a great first step. My only other question, also being a former high school teacher, is how are you going to get the high school kids to buy into this, especially the ones that truly need it?
Yeah.
Is it tied to anything like?
So, I mean, we have a number of students that, are unfortunately in a situation where maybe they might not pass the year if they don't attend some type of summer school. What we have talked about doing is having conversations with those students and saying, hey, listen, you come, you complete the work, you show you're successful, this would be basically their summer remediation, and we can move them forward. A lot of it does come down to relationships that our staff have with our students. And I don't think we're going to be able to get everyone, but I do think that we have enough relationships that we're going to be able to get most of the ones that really need it, and especially those that are in unfortunate situations where maybe they just kind of fell off the radar for a little bit, and we're had trouble getting them to engage in our online environment. But now that we have our students face-to-face during this fourth quarter a little bit more, we're hoping that we can either get them to where they need to be by the end of the year, or at least get them set up for a program like this during the summer.
I love the mentorship, tone that you're setting with that whole high school group. Are they going to have any option of coming in person if they want to, or is that entirely going to be online, the high school one?
So I think that just comes down to a logistical issue of, it depends what each student may need. So we do pride ourselves as a school district being small enough that we do oftentimes make exceptions for one-offs, but systemically, I don't think we'd be able to provide everyone, like you need trig, you need Algebra 1, you need bio, you need physics, you need woodshop. I don't think we're going to be able to provide that for everyone.
Yeah.
So to the point about high school, I was having that same thought, how do you get like 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old kids to attend like a summer camp, if you will, it's even academically oriented to some small degrees. The thought I'm wondering is there a way to leverage our internship program? So some of these kids may need to work over the summer and can't really afford, not just financially, but in many ways, afford to invest in their education over the summer for a handful of weeks. What if we tied it to an internship, which might give them more practical opportunity to learn some hands-on skills, to practice some of what they learned in the classroom? I don't know, I'm just brainstorming, sort of thinking out loud here, but that might be enough skin in the game for a, you know, a young or mid-teenage age person to commit 3 weeks of their summer to a program like this, if that was a payback for them?
Not opposed. A lot of it right now, it just comes down to what are the needs of the students that would be coming to us? And then once we are able to identify that, how can we make that learning experience as rich and meaningful as possible? So I'm not coming to you with a crystal clear, and I apologize for that, but this is exactly what it will look like. I'm coming to you with a framework. And there's still a lot that needs to be kind of fleshed out with this. And I don't want to overpromise, but when we talk about incentivizing students, we are collaborating on what are different opportunities that we could, you know, maybe provide to students. And again, I'm hesitant to put this out there, but we're even talking about reaching out to Topton Pool and saying, hey, you know, would you be willing to provide like a free membership or something for students that may be attending our summer learning opportunity? So again, I don't know where they fall on any of this, but when we talk about actually tapping into some of our local community resources, to partner with the school district, those are conversations that we're having. That's just one example, but and I don't know if it will come to fruition or not, but these are things that we are actively investigating.
You know, you said like perfect attendance, you get to win or enter to win $100 Amazon gift card, like little things like that, if it's possible to get donated, it would mean a lot to the school users.
Absolutely.
And then for staffing, for the teachers, what kind of stipend are we looking at offering them? Like,
So currently in the CBA, there's a $25 per day, hour, thank you, $25 per hour agreement already drawn up. We honestly don't think that that would be enough to entice some teachers to come out this summer, which is why we discussed, all right, well, some things that have been successful with Ready, Set, Read is an hour of planning a day that's paid. All right, so if you put that in, and then you also put in the week prior for some planning for the summer learning, that starts to add up into a sum that we do believe would be enticing for a number of our teachers.
How about like the professional development hours that maybe they wouldn't have to during the school year attend one day that would be in person?
So we have had in the past flexible professional development. We just have to be careful with that because oftentimes we have specific things that we really need to make sure everybody sees. We do have some time for, we call it day 189, which is just an extra 7.5 hours of PD they have to do throughout the year. We didn't have a conversation about if this would go towards that or not, but that's just something we have to be aware of.
And we're not doing Ready, Set, Read at all then?
No, so that's a great question. Typically we have Ready, Set, Read, and then we have extended school year for our special ed students, students receiving special education services. And then now we're talking about this additional summer learning opportunity. So instead of having these 3 distinctly different things going on, Dr. Reese and I were sitting down and saying, well, you know what? Could we possibly combine it all together and not have it be completely separate? If we're running small groups, there's no reason we couldn't do that all together. So we are looking to run Ready, Set, Read, ESY, and this summer camp, but all combined together into one summer learning program.
Very nice framework.
Thank you, Mr. Wilbur.
Okay. Thank you, appreciate it.
That concludes the agenda. Very nice. Okay, any additional comments from the board? Hearing none. Mrs. Winkler, please get roll call.
Yes. Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mr. Montry?
Yes.
Mrs. Weiser? Yes. Mrs. Eisenberg? Yes. Mrs. Henry? Yes. Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
7 yeas, motion carries.
Thank you. All right, moving on to personnel report. Can I get a motion and a second?
Motion.
Second. Drop the scissors.
All right, no changes to personnel report, just a few items here. We have a resignation of a staff member on the first page here, on the second page, we have some support staff appointments. We have a new secretary at the elementary school, that's item 2A. We have a new librarian aide at the elementary school, and we have a new school recess cafe at the elementary school. So there's some new faces at the elementary school, and we're really excited for these hires to be taking place with this time. Item 3 is a long-term substitute appointment, and that is for a maternity leave, and that person will be coming in to fill for the remainder of the school year. And that is connected to item F, which is the mentor position for that person. So Ms. Cheryl Lyle will serve as a mentor. And finally, item E is a leave of absence for the remainder of this year under FMLA, and then next year as a maternity leave for the same staff member. Any questions on these personnel items?
All right, any additional discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Malloy? Mrs. Eisenberg?
Yes.
Mrs. Henry? Yes. Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
7 yeas, motion carries.
All righty. Any other additional business? Any public comment? I do need to make an announcement that we did have an executive session prior to the meeting in regards to personnel. And we will also have another executive session after the meeting regarding PSSA assessments. As well as we had an executive session on March 1st in regards to personnel. So after that housekeeping, can I get a motion for adjournment?
So moved. Second.
So